Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show. This show is brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley, and as usual, I am excited about my guests. But I have to be honest about something. I'm a little agitated too because we're talking about money. We're talking about numbers. We're talking about get yourself together because credit reports are important. How you doing, Darius?
I'm great. I'm great, Linda. How are you?
I'm great. Darius Norman is our guest today, and he is also a very busy person to me, and he has a great responsibility for, I would say, people when they graduate from high school. He is from Birmingham, Alabama, but are you living in California now?
Now I'm actually in the great state of Georgia, in the wonderful city of Atlanta, Georgia.
You couldn't take California.
I could probably live in California, but I don't know. I mean, it's pretty expensive, you know?
It's a big difference south to going to the coast over there. Oh my God.
Totally.
So how long you been away from California?
California, well, Alabama, well, actually, well, they kind of correlate because I do have family members in the Los Angeles area. So I can claim California, I can claim Los Angeles, but I've been away from Birmingham, Alabama since 1998. So that's within, 16, 17 years. I've been away from the great city of Birmingham, Alabama.
And I am so thankful to be able to talk to a man who was brought up by an amazing man.
Yes.
Your father was no joke, and he is still no joke.
Yes.
I'm impressed with your father and how well he is in the household because he taught you many things.
Yes, he did. He did. I'm a pedigree of my father's great rearing and upbringing. You know, I'm the third. I have three siblings, but I'm the third child. And my mother and father really instilled some great wisdom and insight, and it has really affected me and caused me to matriculate to be the man and individual that I am this day.
Definitely had a beautiful role model.
Yes.
I appreciate him for allowing himself to be responsible for the head of the household. I mean,
Yes.
It's just nice to know that exists because it's so less than it should be in our society. So I had to acknowledge him.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I didn't know he was a minister till you told me. Wow.
Yes. My father's been a pastor for 30 years in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah.
Wow. And getting back to you, Darius, you are a social worker, a motivational speaker, you're an author, and you have 10 years experience in that field, right?
I do. Well, now it makes up to 14 years if you count.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you are into helping people get their credit together. Tell us a little bit about your services. I want to start out talking about that before we go in depth about it.
Okay. So I created Rewriting Financial Rules. My services, I provide consumer advocacy services. Yes, that includes credit repair services, but also it provides educational tools and literature in terms of educating and empowering individuals who are looking to repair and rebuild their credit scores.
And you do a great job because I saw some of those testimonies, and I found it interesting how you was able to help that one person who had went to purchase a car.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Explain to people about that experience just to give them an idea of what you were able to do for that person.
Yes, man. And I love telling this particular testimonial because I'll be honest with you, Linda. I actually thought when I helped this particular individual, I thought it was out of my scope. And so my sister and her boyfriend referred this gentleman over to me and our services. And he's a retired veteran now from the Army. He was in the Army branch. And this particular gentleman was deployed, and he was deployed over to Afghanistan. And before he was deployed, he was in the market to purchase a automobile. And this particular gentleman, he had a lot of capital. He had cash liquidity in the bank, but he didn't want to just spend all of his, cash money. So he located a particular auto dealership because he was in the market for Mercedes Benz. And this auto dealership, wanted him to provide, to show what kind of funds he wanted to utilize to purchase this particular vehicle. And so he got pre-approved through both of his credit unions. He was a member of a credit union. Got approved through both of those credit unions of up to amount of $91,000. And so once he got approved, the auto dealership, located the vehicle that he wanted. He specified that he wanted a particular Mercedes Benz. And once they located the Mercedes Benz, he decided not to utilize the actual loans that he was pre-approved from through the credit unions that were going to furnish the loan amount for him to purchase the car. He decided to pay for the particular car with cash, pay for it cash because he was getting ready to be deployed. So he decided to pay for it cash, wired over the money, sent it over to the auto dealership. He thought the transaction was, sealed. He was deployed over to Afghanistan. He spent like 2-3 years over there. He came back, and when he arrived back home, he had bills in his mailbox saying that he was like delinquent on his car loan payments. He's like, well, I wired over $53,000 over to this auto dealership. I did not authorize or set up any loans in my name, so I shouldn't have I should not have any car payments. And lo and behold, the loan officer forged his name and set up 2 loans in his name. Those 2 loans that were that he was pre-approved for by the credit unions. That loan officer decided to set up 2 loans in his name and forge his signature. And so he didn't know until he got, he was transferred back over from Afghanistan. He filed a police report. The police got involved. They did their investigation. So the state attorney general's office of the state of Delaware got involved. They did a thorough investigation. Come to find out, it was the loan officer. They ended up arresting the loan officer and prosecuted her. I think she was prosecuted and she's serving like 20 years of jail time. So the courts awarded him somewhat of a restitution from the damages that occurred from this, him being a victim of fraud. But the banks were still trying to hold him accountable for those loans being authorized in his name. So he went to several attorneys. He could not get any attorney to take on the case and to try it in the court of law. And so my sister, as well as her boyfriend, referred this gentleman over. And with some of the research and the knowledge that I had, like I said, I didn't think it was in my scope. And so what we did, we began to employ some consumer protection strategies. There's a consumer protection agency that is out here only for consumers who are faced with those challenges. And so we submitted the complaint, and one of the banks who were they were just resistant in regards to working any kind of deal out with him, ended up, when we employed this particular strategy, they ended up working with this gentleman, removing a negative item off his credit, and paid him like 3-4 years of restitution for the damages.
Wow. That had to
Yes.
feel
And
fantastic, didn't it?
it did because, in my journey, in my travel, in terms of rebuilding my credit score and repairing my credit, I learned these particular principles and strategies. And it was refreshing because I was able to see those principles work with other individuals. I was able to see it being duplicated.
So you said, wow, this stuff works.
Yes. And go ahead.
I said, you have some amazing testimonies of people who appreciate your services.
Yes. And it's that's what I get a kick out and joy from, seeing other people benefit. It's not so much so the money or the material things that you can gain from helping other people and providing a service. I wanted to provide a quality service and have integrity back it.
But what made you want to have this type of service?
Well, and I kind of alluded to it in the beginning. I created Rewriting Financial Rules and the Consumer Advocacy Service because I had my own setback financially. I would say 4 years ago. I was living above my means, Linda. I was, as so many people do, and Americans do. We live in a capitalistic society. We're always encouraged to spend, and get everything on credit, and there's repercussions behind that. So I fell in that cycle. So I was spending, and I saw myself. It was very counterproductive. I had a 527 credit score, but I was living in a $1,600 a month condo downtown Atlanta. And and it dawned on me, I think what really dawned on me was when I was unable to continue to make car note payments one time, and the necessities I was lacking and was unable to obtain, like my food, keep gas in my car, and maintain my car insurance. And so it dawned on me, I'm like, hey, I need to I need to make some real adjustments here. I need to downgrade my lifestyle. So what I did, I downgraded my lifestyle because at this time I'm a single man, no wife, no kids. I was able to make those adjustments. I downgraded from that one bedroom with $1,600 a month condo downtown. I moved to an apartment 60, 70 miles outside the radius of Atlanta and moved into a one bedroom, one bath apartment for $300 a month.
But what caused you to do that? Because you had a pretty good example of how the household ran. So I just like for people to know, even though you could come up in a great foundation, you still
Right.
can pivot,
Right. Well, my mother and father were great in terms of how they managed their finances. But hey, and most parents and moots, even in the school system, they don't teach you about personal finances and how you're going to be faced with challenges if you handle it incorrectly when you go off to college. So when I went off to college here, I live in Atlanta. I'm moving to Atlanta. I went to a wonderful HBCU by the name of Morris Brown College, and I see all these, it's a new environment. It's a new world to me. In Atlanta, I don't know if you know much about it, but it's a materialistic driven city and town. And, you're trying to find your way as an adult, as a teenager, you're trying to find your place. And so I felt like, being surrounded by materialism, I felt like I had to buy things or live a certain way before actually like preparing for it. And so I was, just got off track like any other teenager or young adult who, trying to find their way.
Did a girl have anything to do with that?
No. Well, yes. Well, I will say this. Atlanta has a lot of beautiful women here. And that was a drawing card in terms of why I picked the institutions I attended, because of the beautiful women, because we were you know, women, I don't care what nobody say, women have all the power. And, you know, men buy things and do things for women attention. And you got to think about it as a college student, and here we're surrounded by guys who are in the NBA, in the NFL, and they also play professional sports, and they're coming around our campuses in Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces, and you're seeing how the girls are responding, and here you're a struggling college student going back to your room eating ramen noodles. You're like, so, you know, it's like that social pressure put on you to, you know, to perform because of the reaction or the attention, you know, those individuals are receiving. And it's false.
So what was the first thing you learned to begin the journey of, you know, reconstructing your foundation?
Well, I'll say the first principle was I learned the importance of saving and obtaining a budget. And because I realized I was spending more than I was actually bringing in. And then by me spending more, my credit ruined because I was unable to pay any loan or car note amounts that I had or loans that I was responsible for. I was unable to pay them. So then it ruined my credit. So that really caused me to reevaluate my value system.
So before then, did you even think about your credit?
And I'm gonna be honest with you, no. And again, you know, I don't think most teenagers or even adults don't think about it until you purchase a big ticket, or you need to purchase a big ticket item, or if it's required by an employer, if you're trying to obtain a job. A lot of times I wasn't thinking about my credit until I fell into this particular predicament financially.
And you learned from step one to step two. And so you decided to keep note of it, or was you just remembering to be able to process, to share with other people?
Well, from then on, once my credit score started approving, I started seeing some things. I started repairing my credit, working with individuals. I started noticing, I'm like, hey, maybe I can empower others because there are other people who may be faced with the same challenges as myself. Let me create a manual or two to educate these individuals so they will have a pathway to going down a different journey. And so I kept everything I utilized is in that book, and I kept a notebook. I did keep a journal.
So during that time when you was struggling, did you actually hit rock bottom? Was you able to save yourself from that?
Well, to be honest with you, I did hit rock bottom. I mean, it wasn't completely like I was not homeless, but like I said, my quality of life shifted. I went from a $1,600 a month apartment to a $300 a month apartment. But the money and the amount of money that I was able to save and to pay off debt and pay down my debt and to repair my credit, it was worth it because I was uncomfortable. I didn't need to be comfortable anymore, you know?
Wow. So when you talk about you came to this realization when you left home, because as long as you was at home, you really didn't have to be conscious of credit or bills or money. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's how everybody, once they graduate and
Right.
off that stage, they're not thinking about a credit card. They're not thinking about bills. They're thinking about, wow, I'm free.
Right. And the companies don't explain to you the terms and conditions once you sign your name on those dotted lines of the ramifications of you're not able to maintain those payments, or you're become delinquent on making your car note payments or your student loan debt.
Well, see, that's another thing I had wanted to ask you about. Why is student loans not allowed on a bankruptcy?
Well, years ago, and I would hate to say this, years ago, it was allowed, but George W. Bush and his administration changed the bankruptcy laws. And so within his administration, they did not allow students or individuals who were faced with tremendous student loan debt. They put a policy in place where you could not bankrupt on your student loans. And that occurred back in 2005.
Wow. And
Yeah.
then I was wondering too is, a lot of times people are ready to graduate from college,
Right.
but
Right.
they have student loans and they know the moment they walk across that stage, it kicks in, you got to start making these payments. And so
Right.
instead of making those payments, they'll just take out more student loans and just keep going to school. How do you help them to break that cycle?
Well, I think the first way to help students, and myself, I've helped individuals. I think the first step would be to reevaluate what school or colleges or universities that you attend, because college debt and the financials in terms of attending school, colleges now or universities are so expensive. If you can attend a state university, or if you can attend a community college that is providing Pell, and you can able to, qualify for Pell Grants, or you can get scholarships from those particular institutions. That will be the first step. I have encouraged students to look into, instead of trying to go to universities and colleges and you have no scholarship, no fellowships, or no other type of financial backing other than taking out student loan debts.
Because they just keep escalating. They don't even realize that somewhere you have to get off of that ride, and it's kind of sad.
It is. And, our previous administration, they did put in place the income-based repayment program. So if you are a public service worker, such as myself, if you're a social worker, if you're a police officer, you're a probation officer, if you are a teacher, they have a program called the public service worker, and they have income-based driven programs where they will make the monthly payments of your student loan debt comfortable based on your salary rates. So that is something in place to also help students or graduate students once they're graduating from college.
So what would you say to a person, okay, when you read Matthew 6, they talk about take no thought, take no concern, just have faith. So a lot of times people don't look at the spending, they're trusting God. Is that misinterpreted?
Well, there's a such thing as being in faith and being in foolishness, and I think one thing, God is a God of principle. God tell you, if you look in Proverbs, he tells the individual, go look at the ant. The ant is building and saving for a hard time. You see what I'm saying? But I think a lot of that has to do with, yes, we do. We supposed to live by faith if we are Christians, and we live by that particular foundation. But I think it has to be some practicality. We need to balance faith with practicality.
I have to go to this one too while we're on faith.
Because I live by faith too, and I was living by faith at that time. I was paying my tithes. I was sowing my seed. But I was doing some things that was breaking spiritual law also.
Really?
You see? Well, I was, there's a spiritual laws. There's other laws that are in place, so the spiritual laws, they coincide with the other laws. If there's a law of saving, there's a law of abundance. And if you break those natural laws, the spiritual laws can precede them, but, you won't see them until you work with them together. I hope I'm making sense.
That's where I was going. It's like a lot of people feel like they can't prosper without paying their tithes. Now I have seen people, they're gonna pay their tithes even if they have to go to the food bank.
Yeah.
Now, where do people establish that balance? Do you feel like no matter what, you pay your tithes?
If you're on the street and you don't have anywhere to live, if you don't have any food in your refrigerator, first reevaluate that first. God don't want you living out here on the street. He doesn't want you hungry. Once you reestablish and put yourself in a position to have those hierarchy of needs met, then look at tithing and giving extra. But if you're not in order, how can you be a blessing to anybody else?
Well, what do you think about when they say your gifts and talents make a way for you? What do you think they're actually saying for you?
I think your gifts and talents does make room for you. I think it's a process. It's a step-by-step thing. It doesn't just open overnight. It can, but I think you have to prepare for it, for those moments when your talents are gonna be able to be revealed and shine.
Wow, I have to agree with that. And then, like, as I really like what you're saying, okay, this
Yeah.
says like, oh, no man, anything but love. So is that a
Mhm.
sin to be in debt?
No, it's not a sin to be in debt. It's just how you utilize debt. God is a God of prosperity, and He puts natural laws and principles in places. The Bible, the Scripture says that God reigns on the just as well as the unjust. His principle works for anybody. So if you can utilize if you know how to utilize the principles, it will work for you. So in the sphere of debt and credit, you can utilize those principles. You just have to educate yourself and put yourself in the position so you can benefit from it.
Well, do you think that America is on the verge of something different when it comes to money? Like they come up with Bitcoins, they come up with like, is it true that China doesn't even use money anymore?
Well, it not only just China, but I've even heard whispers of Russia um, not trading in dollars anymore. Most of those countries, because they're becoming industrial also, and they're able to compete, they're moving away from the dollar and the standard of the dollar. Some of those, like China and Russia, are, from what I've gathered in some of my research, they have become the biggest gold holder, because you got to think about it. The dollar is not backed by any commodity. The most precious commodity in the world is gold and land.
Wow. So something is going on in America, wouldn't you say, as far as how money is going to be, infiltrated through the system and how people will have access to their own money? Because it's like now people are starting to create their own money.
Yeah, like you indicated with the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You even have now current cryptocurrency that is backed by gold now. Yes. And so the dollar and its standard and how they weigh money could possibly change within the next few years. I'm not a guru in that aspect, but you could see the trends moving towards that. Totally.
So what would you suggest for us today? How do we live a life of security when it comes to credit and our money?
Well, in terms of credit, let's start off with credit. Credit, you need to make sure that you review your credit reports once a year. You can obtain a free credit report by going to annualcreditreport.com. And by you reviewing your credit report, you can, review and determine if you have any inaccuracies or any negative items placed on your credit report. Because the more negative items that you have on your credit report could cost you thousands of dollars in terms of spending if you're looking to buy a home or a car, or if you're a small business owner and you're looking to purchase you need more capital for your business. Having a good credit score or a bad credit score can determine how much you will be paying. And so that's the importance of you maintaining a good credit score, is to know what's being reported on your credit report. Based on the research, it indicated that 79% of Americans have some type of inaccuracy or wrong information placed on their credit report. Yeah, that's true.
So if you're looking for a companion, do you think you should be concerned about their credit score?
I think so. I mean, I think if we're going to talk about scriptures, the Bible says where your treasure is, where your heart is. How you deal with finances and how you deal with your money reveals how you are as an individual, what type of integrity you have. And so I think it's very important if you're gonna look to get married, because hey, I do the same thing. I have to do the same self-assessment myself. That was one factor why I wanted to make these changes, because I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna get married and have a wife and children eventually, I need to be in a place financially where I'm able to take care of a wife and have children.
And your book, tell us the title of your book again.
The name of my book is entitled Rewriting Financial Rules.
Are you reaching the younger generation of people who have yet to step out of their home, or do you catch them after then? What's your main audience as far as the younger people?
Well, and that's interesting that you're asking me that, because that's my campaign is to reach more so the younger people than the older, people of my age and my age group, because, the younger people, they need to really be informed. And so that's the demographic I'm leaning towards reaching. I'm actually supposed to be doing a magazine interview that's reaching the millennials. So it's ironic that you asked me that.
I'd like to see that book in schools before they graduate, especially
right.
something as simple as what should be their first credit card? What type of credit card should they start their journey with?
Right. Well, especially if you have a high school student or a new graduate from college, the first credit card they should start off with, because most of the times they don't have any credit history. So either if you are, as the parent, have great credit, you can add your child on to your credit line without giving them a physical credit card, and your credit history can show up on their credit history, and it can boost their credit score immediately. But if you don't have that particular option, the best option would be to obtain a secure line of credit of maybe $200. And then by them obtaining a $200 credit card, they can develop ethics and discipline to know how to manage a credit card. And so then, by them learning those ethics and learning discipline at that moment, once they master that particular level, then they can, reach and obtain other lines of credit and, move forward.
And how do people prevent, identity theft? Because that seems to be a dominant thing going on now.
Right. Well, I would say definitely with the breach, we had a massive breach here in the United States with one of our credit bureaus, which is Equifax. It's one of the main credit bureaus that obtains all consumers' account information. So what we should do to protect ourselves against this massive breach and individuals to obtain our information would be to call all three of the credit bureaus and obtain a free. The Congress did pass recently where all consumers can get their credit report frozen for free. So what that does, when you ask for a credit report freeze, it protects you from getting new lines of credit established in your name without your authorization.
Well, do you think that, because some people think as long as they have bad credit, they don't have to worry about identity theft. Is that true?
That's true in some aspects, but the downside of that, they're not only gonna, use your credit profile to obtain new lines of credit, they can empty out your bank accounts. and set up new bank accounts. So if you do have poor credit and you may have money in the bank, with that particular information, they have that access to your information. They could take all your bank information. They could empty out all your bank accounts. So it's still important for you to, monitor your credit and, utilize strategies to protect yourself from identity theft.
Well, what do you think about people who have a lifestyle of bankruptcy? Because it is people who do that, as a lifestyle.
Well, can I be funny? I may be sarcastic when I say this, but we have our chief and commander in chief who has utilized the bankruptcy strategies for years, and he's used it to protect his wealth. You see what I'm saying? I think bankruptcy, that's a misnomer around bankruptcy, because I think if you do have to bankrupt, there are some reasons and concerns if you have to bankrupt. If you're just really over your head, you may have mounting medical bills of $300,000 and $400,000, and these companies are really ruthless. They're willing to, freeze your bank accounts. They're willing to take your home and the equity in your home. I mean, so bankruptcy can be a way or strategy to protect you against some of those aggressive practices when they're trying to collect from you.
Okay, let's just say you have about 10 credit cards. They're not maxed out yet, but how do you get a grip on that? How do you beat the interest rate?
Ooh, so what you should do, I think, especially, well, first of all, you don't need 10 credit cards.
But some people have even that and more.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the cost of living nowadays, some people just have to utilize credit cards, but I would think you will start from the smallest to the largest. Pay off the smallest account that you may have, and then work your way up to pay off the next smallest, and then work your way up to pay the next largest. And once you're able to pay those off or pay those down, one thing would be beneficial if you have credit cards. You can always utilize them, but never max them out. Always keep them within the 25 to 30% utilization rate.
So, so you said don't max them out, but do it affect your credit if you close them?
Yes, it can have an adverse effect on your credit if you close them and you have not established at least a 12 to 24 month payment history. Now, you can close them after a year, and if you pay them on time, yes, you can close them out. I would say 24 months within 2 years, because then you show that you've had 2 years of good payment history, and then you just closed it out. That's fine. That would not have an adverse effect on you. But if you only had the card 4 months and you just closed it, it could tank your credit score. Because go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Because the number one component in creating your credit score and boosting your credit is your payment history. And that counts for 35% of how the totality of your credit score is derived.
And you feel like because we don't monitor our accounts that you about can say, I bet you I have at least one on my credit report I need to get off of there.
Yes.
Hey, look, I own
it. But see, and another thing, but at least you're being honest, Linda, because my thing is, the companies also, this is the thing about credit bureaus and the companies that report to the credit bureaus, there may be old account information that should not even be on your credit report. But it can, if you're looking to buy a home or a car or obtain capital for your small business, that old information can affect you in terms of getting approved. And the credit bureaus are only supposed to report any account information up to 7 years. If this past 7 years, they're breaking the law, and that's also the statute of limitations, or suffice that, and they should no longer report that on your credit report.
And another thing that I noticed, like sometimes when you go to department stores, they say, well, take out a card, take out a credit card, you'll get 50% off today. And you'd be like, No, I already know where I stand, you know.
Yeah.
But they be really wanting you to take out that credit card.
Yeah, and it's for promotional reasons, and they get a lot of the salesmen. They get like a incentive by opening up new card holders with that particular store brand. So yeah, they're not looking at you as the consumer. They're looking at you as the um, you know,
Yeah, for
hey, we're looking,
their
yeah, and they're benefiting their bottom line. Go
but
ahead.
their credit check is called a soft credit check. Is that what that is? Why sometimes you slide through?
Well, yes, some companies do have a soft credit check because inquiries will have an adverse effect on your credit. It's okay if you're out shopping for an item, or if you are looking for a credit card, it's okay to, you know, have a few inquiries. But if you're having multiple inquiries, like 20 or 30 inquiries, that will tank your score immediately.
Why?
Because with the banks, they see that as you being a risk, or pose as a risk of defaulting on debt or loans. I know it's ironic, but yeah, my brother used to be a loan officer, and he gave me the science of the breakdown of that because I asked him that question also, and he said, "Well, you pose as a risk in terms of how you're going to be dealing with debt,
But
and it
also,
drives your credit score down."
am I correct to say that the credit bureau actually collects our information and sell it to loan companies?
Yes. So the credit bureaus only collect any account information in your name. And what they do is they collect any account information. If you have a utility bill, a car note, car loan, or you have your rental history, they turn around, they collect all that information, and then they sell it to the bureaus for a fee. And then the bureaus report that information and calculate your totality of your credit score. And then the banks then review that credit profile, what the credit bureaus are reporting as your profile, to determine if you credit worthy or not. And that's where that credit score comes in at. It's a system set in place to kind of keep people at a certain level. But knowledge is power. What the Bible say? Without the lack of, what is it, Linda? I'm getting.
Without the lack of knowledge, my people fail
Yeah, people
because of
fail
the lack
without
of
it
knowledge.
because of lack of knowledge. Yeah. So knowledge is a knowledge gap. A lot of times that's holding us back.
So, because you work so intensely with credit, do
Mhm.
you actually monitor your credit all the time? Because like barbers, sometimes they don't cut their hair. Beauty. So, are you really monitoring your credit?
Well, I used to, like when I was working through my own process, I was monitoring it every day because I wanted to see the changes. Now I still monitor it, but it's not as intensive. I monitor it maybe every 2 weeks, once a month, you know, especially if I'm looking to buy big ticket items. But I am set up with all the free credit monitoring um, companies that you can utilize to review your credit reports and credit profile and scores.
So do you be looking at people? I know what your credit score is. I can imagine what your credit score. Or
What you mean, like it?
do you let people be free?
I just let people be free because I was once that. Linda, I had a 527 credit score. I had a jacked up. I could not buy anything. So I've been in those shoes, so I can empathize with individuals. Even though when I'm looking at their credit reports and looking at their credit scores, I'm like, yo, I remember that. I used to have this. I was late on some payments. So no, I don't go in and I don't have scorn of judgment, and not at all. Because to me, if they're coming to me to want me to help them, I need to make them feel comfortable. Because dealing with your finances, and you're trying to, especially if you're dealing with hardships, it could be a very sacred thing. A lot of people don't want you to see that.
So basically, okay, when people come to you with bad credit, is
Mhm.
it mostly people who had a moment in their life that just dropped everything, or is it just pure irresponsibility?
I would say it's the best of both worlds. There are people who were doing everything right. It was just a circumstance. Life happens sometimes. But I've run across people who did not have the knowledge about personal finances, and especially around credit. You know, they've made foolish choices, and they were not trying to make the necessary changes until they ran into a barrier. So yeah, I run into people from both worlds.
Okay. And you also had mentioned when I was reading that, being young in college, buying a candy bar with a credit card could be not such a great idea. Why is that?
Because of the interest rates, that's what I was saying with the terms and conditions, and why it's important that we should educate our young. Because when you sign for those credit cards, if you are buying a candy bar or a pair of sneakers, depending on that interest rate that credit card company is furnishing you, you could be paying for that item 10 times more because of the interest rate. So say if you bought a pair of Michael Air Jordans, let's just say, because young people love Air Jordans, these millennials do. And those shoes run you between $200 $250. So if you purchase it on your credit card and you have a $500 credit limit, and let's say you have let's say a 22% interest rate, guess what? If you don't pay that balance down and you continue to make those minimum payments, after you're done paying for that, you probably would have spent $800 $900 on that pair of shoes.
So how do you actually beat that credit, that rate, that interest rate? How do you beat it?
Well, first of all, you need to have a great credit score. The best credit score, based on the credit scoring system, is a 850. The poorest is a 300. So the better score that you have, you can get a better interest rate. So most banks and lending institutions, if you have at least a 640 or better, they are providing you with comfortable interest rates. Also, a lot of people don't know this. This is a trick, and I'm giving this out free because of you, Linda. Most people don't. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know that you can actually call your credit card companies within 3 to 6 months and ask for a better interest rate if you're paying it on time. So you can actually ask for a better interest rate. Ask for interest rate slash.
But I'm kind of curious though. Okay, when you went to college, you wasn't going to college to become a financial specialist.
No, that was not even in the plan. I didn't see this. This was God's plan per se, I think. And through my own setback and suffering, I saw God's purpose in it. And so it's been my mission since then. But I will say this, Linda, I have kind of taken. I have. Am I talking too much? I'm sorry.
You know what I'm getting at?
Go ahead.
That ministry I was telling you about.
Oh my God.
I gotcha. I took my time too.
Oh my God. I've heard this all my life. So
Yeah.
I've normalized it,
Yeah, God wants his people to prosper. You can't prosper being ignorant.
No.
And you catching it young for people. And that's what
Yes.
you learned. You learned young.
Yes. And I want to
Figured it
continue
out and
to help
worded it
individuals.
well. Hmm?
Yeah. And I want to continue to help young people in this aspect.
Have to get it into
So,
the school system though, because they be having accounting and different things like that. Definitely
right.
get it in the
What,
school system.
well, based on the research indicated that only 29 states require high school students to take an economical course, but it's nothing surrounding personal finances and how to handle personal finances. Like even creating a budget. We didn't learn that in school, you know? You didn't learn how to, about the rule of setting. You learn about the stock market, like you say, you learn fundamentals around accounting, but not how you should handle personal finances as when you get out of school, or understanding those terms and conditions. If you are going to get a credit card, I'll tell you, I helped a young lady. Am I over talking?
Go ahead.
I want to tell you a story. I actually helped, and I want to really drive this home with young people, especially now if you're going to get credit cards, student loans, and if you have bank accounts. These companies are what they're doing. It's a young lady I recently helped. She obtained a credit card from college. She's a new college graduate. She graduated college back in August of this year. Well, she had a part-time job, worked at the school, work-study job, and she finished school. She wasn't able to pay the credit card anymore because the work-study job finished. Do you know that credit card company sold her debt to a debt collector, and they're trying to sue her? And I've seen this on a lot of occurrences now. These debt collectors are now teaming with these companies. So that's why it's important for these kids to understand the black and white and these agreements that they're signing to, because these companies can sell your debt. They have arbitrary agreements in place. They can sell your debt to these debt collectors, and they can take you into the court of law to demand you to pay them. Yeah.
And you was able to help her?
Yes, we were able to help her. I mean, she kind of went on her own, but I was able to kind of slow down the process. And I think she ended up going to court and settling it out, but she didn't need a lawyer. We were able to utilize some consumer strategies and get them to answer to some things for her.
So if people want to purchase your book and get in touch with you and actually need some of your services, how do they contact you?
So they can go directly to my website. I have a website entitled, it's www.rewritingfinancialrulesllc.com. My book is on my website also if they would like to purchase it. It's a good educational tool. It gives you the fundamentals. Thank you. It gives you the fundamentals about credit and how you could do it yourself, and ways to boost your credit score if you need to.
And Darius, you are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
Well, the truth I would love to be remembered by is I will always encourage you guys to remain consistent and persistent. Don't ever let things, if you're faced with a challenge, if you're faced with credit challenges, face it, don't run from it, and go right ahead and deal with it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yep.